here's Allana doing a professional interview with the incredible, oh my god, Nassim Haramein, one of the smartest men on this entire friggin' planet. We're actually connected.
We're actually connected, and we have really no reason to be insecure because we're supported by the whole universe.
Yeah, you're friggin' proving it.
Yeah.
That just gets me so excited.
Right, it's amazing.
Take two. So welcome to this edition of Brave, Bold, and Raw. I totally have to tell you a behind the scenes story. Okay, so here's Allana doing a professional interview with the incredible, oh my god, Nassim Haramein, one of the smartest men on this entire friggin' planet. Solved Einstein's field equations. Resonance.is is how you can learn about him. So I'm all like excited about my interview, and it goes really well, and I check my camera. and it didn't go through, and we were just finishing our last interview talking about what can we do, how can we show up and interact with the field. You know, it's our capacity to respond. And so there I was, embarrassed, ashamed, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna apologize. And say I'm so sorry, you busy man.
Oh, it's okay, no problem. I guess we needed to take another take.
Take two.
The first take was no good.
But it was
we're
so
gonna do
good.
a better job this one.
But we're gonna knock it out of the park this one. That's for damn sure.
That's
so
right.
A little more background about who this incredible man is. Again, resonance.is, you can find out more. But give us the whole lowdown, because there's paper after paper that you've put out into the world, and you're on the leading edge of physics, of all of it.
Well, if I was to give an overarching, statement about what the physics I'm writing are saying, they're saying that you can't isolate a system.
Right.
That systems are in relationship to all other systems, and that when you look at a particle or subatomic particle or a black hole in the universe, whatever, you're actually looking at the relationship, all things in the universe manifesting in one place.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a holographic concept.
Yes.
And so I've used a holographic principle, which is already in the standard model,
Okay.
but I used it a little differently and applied it all the way to the atomic structure and found incredible things. And it came from earlier thoughts I had that the universe is connected, that there is this fundamental energy at the base of creation, this field of energy that's in quantum theory already, that's called a vacuum energy or vacuum fluctuation.
Right.
And that it wasn't recognized when it was discovered, and that this energy is actually what creates all the organization and all the incredible world we see all around us. Because when we think of the atom, actually when we look at the atom, it's made out of 99.99999% space.
Space, yeah.
And that space in physics is not empty. It's full of this incredible energy, And we're not aware of it because it's fluctuating at really, really high frequency, and it's in really, really teeny bits of oscillations that we call Planck oscillators. And they're so teeny that if I, like you're made out of 100 trillion cells, right? Which is already incredibly large number.
Yeah.
And then each cell is made of approximately 100 trillion atoms.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So it's really small already at the atomic level. And then the proton is a teeny little thing in the middle of the atom.
Wow.
If I grew one of those Planck vacuum oscillator thing, like this energy of the vacuum little bits or this little pixel size of our universe, so that it was a grain of sand on the end of my finger, then the proton, which is already small, right?
Yeah.
Would be from here to Alpha Centaurus, right? Like a huge bubble, right?
Right.
So you can imagine how small this energy density is, like how undetectable it would be to our senses and to our experience.
Yeah.
Just like radio waves are flying around here, and unless we have a radio, box with a little oscillator in there that picks up the frequency just right, we don't hear, all the radio, all the music and all the announcers and all this stuff, right? We're not aware it's there until we have a way to tap into it.
Right.
The same thing, I realized that this field may be the thing that's connecting all things in the universe, that's moving the information across all things in the universe, and that maybe, it wasn't matter that defined the space, but it was space that defined matter.
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that matter is just a little boundary in the space due to the way the space is organizing in that region. And when I tried to do the math that way, like counting all the little oscillators on of the vacuum on top of, the proton and on the inside of the proton, I found something profound. I found that the inside of the proton has a value of energy or information in the vacuum fluctuation, in that field of information, that's equivalent to the mass of the universe. That is, all the other protons in the universe are represented in one teeny little proton, so that all the everything is connected through this incredible high velocity, highly dynamic structure of space-time. And so it really kind of struck me that the whole thing must be a holographic. Something had concluded earlier, but I didn't have, the math and the everything worked out yet. So I started to calculate, and I realized that, that, can only, like, all the information that's in there can only be expressed through the surface of that little event horizon. That, like, the limitation is how much information is on the surface relative to what's inside. And I started to do simple ratios, and right away it outputted the mass of the black hole. Meaning, like, if I was taking any black hole in the universe and I did that ratio on it, I would get the exact same solution
as the little one.
No, I would get exactly the same solution as Einstein's equation for gravity for any black holes in the universe. And then I applied it to the little proton, and it gave me the correct mass for the proton as well, which makes up all of our reality. And so I had found a quantized, because it's little quantities, little discrete Plancks, a quantized solution to gravity, or quantum gravity. And I applied it to the subatomic particles and the proton, and I found many different solutions. The ones I just published include that the force that holds the protons together is actually that interaction of all the other protons with the one protons, creating that gravitational force between the proton, and that force has the correct reach that we measure in laboratory. So it was really exciting, and from this equation I was able to output exactly what the radius of the proton should be too. And the radius of the proton has been extremely difficult to measure. We had earlier experiments that agreed with the standard model pretty good, but then newer experiments that were more precise did not agree with the standard model. And so, it was ignored for a while. I published my paper with a prediction of what it should exactly be, and then they did new experiments in Switzerland independently, to confirm or defirm the earlier, more precise measurement, and found, that they were correct, those more precise measurement, but as well got it in higher resolution, which basically my prediction nails.
Nice.
And so, it's very exciting because it's showing that it's very strong theoretical predictive theory, and it says that everything is connected, and that we live in a holographic structure, right? And that it's talking. The whole thing is talking, and it's all about relationships. And so I am really excited about these results, and there's more coming. you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why he's on this telesummit, you're like, why are you having a quantum physicist on your Brave, Bold, and Raw telesummit? You always talk about sex or intimacy. And what's so exciting for me, even though I'm doing my best to keep up with everything you say, I promise, is that when I support people in being more intimate in their relationships, it's never really about the other person. It's always about, well, they might be interacting with them, but it's always about their relationship with self. Mm-hmm. And it's always about that connection with the field, mm-hmm. shall we call it, and that ability to feel that connection, even if you've been dumped, but you can feel it with the sunshine, or you can feel it with nature, mm-hmm. or you can feel that oneness with yourself that somehow allows you to make better choices in relationships,
right.
give more allowance to your children, to your lover, mm-hmm. to yourself. Mm-hmm. So to hear you quantify that this is how the universe is structured, and it's aligned with truly the magic that occurs when we allow that kind of connection with all that is, it just really gets me excited.
Me too, actually. I think there is a lot of, fundamental concepts in this view yeah. of the universe that applies to how we interact with each other, yeah. how we feel about ourselves, you yeah. know, yeah. and how we feel relative to the world, because it seems like we're constantly, in a judgment of ourselves yeah. relative to what people think about us and all this. Yeah. But if we stop for a second and realize, oh my God, I have all the universe in every one of my little protons, yeah. and how much of a miracle it yes. is yes. that I'm just like able to cohere yeah. all these protons to make up my existence. Yeah. And I get to enjoy this body fully, yeah. Yeah. and interact and feel that connection with the field. Yeah. Then, like you said, and when you get dumped or you're having a hard time or your lover is not collaborating with what you would like the way things should happen.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that never happened to me. Right. Anyway, although I will say yeah. that quantum theory and all the mathematics and all the complexity, uh-huh. as far as I can tell from my own experience, yeah. Is easier than relationship. Well, but if you could, I think at the end of the day, when I fail in my relationships and such, it has to do with my capacity to love myself. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily a failure, but it's just like when you're in, like when you feel that sense mm-hmm. of connectivity, yeah. then when, people come together and you go apart, yeah. but they never really go apart. Yeah. Yeah. And so if that connection is there, uh-huh. you don't see it as like this terrible event in which like there's separation. It's right. just an evolution. Right. It's the universe learning. Right. And I'm learning and they're learning, and let's learn together, and however it looks, mm-hmm. let's just grow. Right.
Right. Take us back just for a moment when you were a little guy, and why do you think you were chosen for this? Because I understand that when you were 9, you started thinking about all of these things. I've watched his amazing DVD, one of them anyways you can get, where he's in the back of his, van, someplace, like I'm Canadian too, but I don't know where you think you were in Whistler or something, and you're like thinking of all these things as you're dreaming in the back of your van, and now you're on the front page of all these different events and newspapers. What was it like to be your mother? And what was it like to be a 9-year-old boy? Did you fit in?
Oh, I didn't fit in at all. And it was probably pretty hard to be my mother. I'm a father now, and I know that if my son was anything the way I was, I would be sweating it, But it was hard to be my mom and my dad because I didn't fit in. Yeah. I was extremely dyslexic. I still am, and I had a lot of difficulty at school. Mm-hmm. But generally, I was disinterested.
Right.
I was much more interested in being in nature.
Yeah.
And studying nature and looking at the flowers and trees, and I love to daydream.
Yeah.
And in my daydream session, I had all sorts of ideas and concepts. And wow, you know, what if that tree and I, you know, the space in between is not empty, it's full. I mean, like, I remember those thoughts at the age of 9, you know, like I had all sorts of insight.
Right.
And I had nobody to talk to them about.
Of course.
And actually, you know, me being that way was disturbing people around me. And so it was very difficult. I was very bullied, you know. I have a foreign name in Canada at the time. It was not so common.
Sure.
And so, you know, there was a lot of discrimination and difficulties. And, you know, so I grew up very lonely. But all through that, there was this ray of light, this excitement, this discovery, this possibility. And that's why the first part of my adult life was mostly spent in nature. I was a ski instructor, a ski coach. I, you know, climb mountains, ice climb, all this stuff, because I loved feeling
the oneness,
the connection.
Communion.
Yeah, exactly.
What a question in a second, but when you said when you went out in nature and is there space between me and the tree, I just got this hit. The first time I was at peace about my mom dying, I was at a workshop, and they asked us to go out and look, not at the tree or the leaf, but for the space in between. I'm like, well, that's stupid. Fine, because I'm all like goal oriented, right? And I went out there, and all of a sudden it hit me that my mom she didn't go anywhere. You know, she was right there, and it was like happy tears. And ever since then, I almost a little embarrassed, like if I'm having sex, I'm like, just go away or something, like, because I know she's there now. It could be kind of funny to know that we really are so connected.
Right, and that the field of information is what holds the structure from which we emerge, you know, and and these equations I just wrote are kind of the baby step in understanding the mechanics on how that actually generates reality.
Well, it's like a baby step. It's like Einstein's field equations. You smarty pants. Baby steps.
Well, you know, there's lots more
Yeah.
to explore, because it's really just the beginning.
Of what then? What is there left next to explore?
Well, it's the beginning of a whole new way of looking at the universe, and a whole new way of thinking on how to engineer devices to, you know, to power our world, for instance, or to transport ourselves in space or in the rest of the galaxy, or even inside the universe. I mean, there's possibilities that emerge from understanding this energy, because it's non-trivial, meaning it is large amounts. When the calculation is done, it shows that in your baby finger you could power, you know, like a little bit of your baby finger could power this world for hundreds of years, right? So like the amount of energy available, if we actually understand how it works, and engineer technology to tap into it, to relate to it, to work with nature instead of fighting nature, there's incredible things coming our way. So really, this is really the beginning of this whole transformation.
So I'm just sort of getting this bird's eye view of the what's right about you being bullied as a little kid, or what was the possibility of that, although it was probably not very fun. In the community now, I imagine there's a certain level of bullying or judgment going on about you're showing us an entirely new reality. People that think they know are now being shown that, no, actually this is correct. So how are you maybe even utilizing what you learned as a kid now as a man with maybe the judgment that's coming to you from the scientific community?
I'm trying not to let the little kid in me feel the same way I felt when I was a child. And it's been a big learning curve. It's been challenging. It hurts.
Of course.
When you, I mean, there's a lot of bloggers out there on the net that's saying all sorts of things about me, and in general is because they don't actually understand what I'm saying and the physics that I'm describing. But it's painful and it's hurtful, and it's not so much what they're saying, like they're calling me an idiot or whatever. That I can let fly.
Sure.
But what's painful is to see people that are opening their mind, that are just like starting to explore this new way, or that are having an inkling that there's more, and that they get swayed by this stuff because they don't necessarily know, and it's safer to go back to the status quo than to go into the unknown.
Sure.
And that's actually what pains me the most. And I just but I'm getting better at it. Sometimes it's more personal than just people blogging on the net. Sometimes it's I get invited to a laboratory, and famous laboratory and all this, and then one of the directors or somebody gets upset, and then it results in this big hoopla drama and all this, and then I get disinvited or things like that. It's painful because I just want to share. And I don't say this is it. I'm saying let's take a look. And it comes out right. So what's possible here?
Totally.
And I wish it could be more like that. And I think it's slowly coming. But it takes a little time.
It does. And it's not just this, it's all of how we're all looking at relationships. So many people that come to me, it's because they have a different belief in relationship. Is it to be monogamous? Their sexuality, places they've always been judged or shamed about. So I think all of us, as we're coming out as pioneers, those that are maybe just afraid of the unknown and they would rather put us down rather than be curious about it.
Right. And the thing is that all advancements in our society has always come from people pushing the boundary of what is known.
Totally.
And bringing in ideas that may sound completely preposterous, at first. And then, it turns out, well, actually, that has some merits, and then eventually it comes along.
Right.
But it's normal as well, I know. It's normal when you've been thinking a certain way, you've invested your whole life in thinking in a certain way. It's extremely difficult to all of a sudden change track. You don't want to scrap everything you've known. It's important that without scrapping everything to keep your horizon open and explore what the possibilities are. And in our private life, I think it's critical, and certainly in science, it's so dependent. Science evolution is so dependent on that. It's so dependent on people exploring new thoughts.
Asking questions.
And asking questions.
Yeah. So, to the best of your ability, kind of explain how this holographic nature is, how as we grow, the universe grows, and really what that interconnectedness could look like for us as we just practically go out in the world, and the importance of how we respond to every situation. And it's not just us in this separate little family or this separate little world. We're honestly affecting the whole.
Right.
And the whole's affecting us.
Yeah, absolutely. When I made these calculations and showed that the mass of the universe is present in terms of vacuum information fluctuation inside each proton, I realized the whole thing is these wormholes that are predicted in Einstein field equation that connects distance parts instantaneously because they're highly curved, and so these wormholes are like Planck size, so they're teeny, and they connect the whole grid, and I start to realize, wow, this is how the universe can self-organize in this incredible complexity we see at the biological level. I mean, you're made out of 100 trillion cells. I mean, there's enough DNA in you to go from Jupiter to the sun, back to Jupiter, back to the sun, like a bunch of times. I mean, like the whole thing is talking.
Wow.
There's I think 100,000, 100 billion chemical changes every second going on in you, and all this stuff. It's very intense.
Yeah.
It's very dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's highly coordinated. It's highly organized. I started to think, wow, this is why it can organize in such level of complexities, because the whole thing is talking. So so we're part of the talking.
Yeah.
Like, not just at the atomic level, like in all the scales of our existence. Like, all of our organs are talking to each other, all the cells are talking to each other, and we're experiencing the universe, and we're talking back to the universe in our actions, in how we feel about it, how we interpret everything that's occurring to us. And we're part of this great learning experience and this great adventure. And so when you realize that, you start to think, wow, what am I feeding the universe? And it's like, I'm in this feedback with the field. You start to experience the field. You start to experience nature not as something that's outside of you, but something that you're part of. And so when you realize that, it's like, oh, like you talk a lot about sexual experiences and relationship. Well, when you start to realize that the impact it can have on your relationship, and the way you interact with your partner, the way you interact with others, and all this stuff, it's very critical. And so it changes a lot of the way you do things, and the way you think of things, and the way you relate. And I fail all the time at feeding the field
good juju.
Good juju. Sometimes I feel, I don't give the field exactly.
Not me, just you.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
However, the thing is can I make that most of the time? Can I feed it most of the time? And can I actually be kind to myself about the times that I don't do so good, right? Because we live in an environment that's actually pretty harsh. That like we live in a world where most of the people are not aware of this connectivity.
Correct.
They feel separated. They feel inappropriate. They feel inadequate. That's what I meant. This insecurity, fundamental insecurity, constant, and it makes them behave in certain ways.
And yet, what you've proven is that that's actually an illusion.
That's right.
We're actually connected.
We're actually connected, and we have really no reason to be insecure because we're supported by the whole universe.
Yeah, you're freaking proving it. It just gets me so excited.
Right, it's amazing. Because as well, it tells us we're all geniuses, we're all masters, we're all incredible. It's an incredible miracle. And it's such so many possibilities are present in one human being. The incredible things. And so to feel that, all of a sudden, many of the insecurities go away. They start to, vanish, and you start to feel more solid. And so when you feel more solid and you feel more connected, then when, your partner is not so excited to be with you, and, things may go their separate way and all this, you're not left thinking, I'm disconnected, nobody loves me, I'm not, the universe doesn't love,
The universe has your back.
The universe is cheering you every second, it's keeping you alive, so.
We spoke before about some things like remote viewing, or the capacity to travel to different universes. My experience in life is when I looked at my dead mother, I remember being at choice. I could disconnect from this pain, or I could be totally open, and I felt this exquisite it was painful, but like a love, just deep love.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I gave birth to my son, and there were, legs splayed open and people walking around everywhere, like I could have not been present. I could have been like, leave the room or whatever.
Right.
But I was just like, oh my God, here's my baby. And just had this beautiful moment. And not every sexual experience, but I have had one where I stopped thinking about, is my ass too big, or is he having any fun, or whatever. And I just sort of left that. It felt like that dimension, and I didn't know where I ended and he began. I didn't even know who was the guy and who was the girl. It was just this beautiful, different reality of possibility, and I can feel that in nature. I can just lose myself, and it feels like I'm swimming through the air. So in terms of the equation and being able, what you've learned, and this ability to be in different places or have remote viewing, what can you explain to them is truly possible for them to become open to?
Well, it's really kind of interesting that when you start to look at the universe this way, and you know, especially if you write the equations and all, it comes out.
Yeah.
It gives the right answer.
Yeah.
Right? Then there's amazing correlation with many of the things that people talk throughout the ages about being able to do.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, like people talk about remote viewing. Well, some actually scientific experiments were done, and it seemed to correlate that people are able, if they concentrate a little bit and go inside, to remote view a place that's on the other side of the world that they've never been to.
Right.
So like, how's that possible? That all sounds really esoteric and ungrounded and magic and all this stuff. But when you put it in this context, then you go, oh, it makes sense. If all the information of everything in the universe is present within one point, within the protons that you're made of, you're made of trillions of those, you can imagine that if you could tap into that information, you could remote view anywhere in the universe. You have the information present in you. And it explains, why particles seems to be connected, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, and why is it possible that somebody would be able to, for instance, at a distance move a spoon, or things like that that seem completely outside of physics, become actually just the way the physics works. And so I've always said that esoteric knowledge is just the physics we haven't understood yet. And I think we're starting to understand these things. And that is really exciting, because if we understand them, then we can become better at it. We can, increase our capacity to do things. All these chi masters that talked about manipulating the chi, we're probably talking about this fundamental field. So it's exciting.
And so what do you see for your future? What are you excited about being alive? What's your vision for what's possible?
Oh, I think that our future looks extremely bright if we can make this change. Like if we can take our boat and turn it just a little bit, and make this change and realize the incredible potential of this fundamental field. We can apply it to technology. We can apply it to space travel. We can apply it to many, many different things that will completely change the way we do things. Imagine all of a sudden that you could extract, just a little teeny bit, like billionth of a percent of what's there in that field. You would be able to power anything you want on the whole planet. You wouldn't be tethered. You wouldn't be stuck anymore to like having to pull oil from the ground or have a nuclear power plant. Like every device could have its little vacuum, interaction device that's extracting energy. Imagine that you can, from this, I've shown that the gravitational component can be described. So all of a sudden you can control the gravitational field. All of a sudden you can go to Jupiter for the weekend and orbit Jupiter. Imagine the change of consciousness that you would have having that kind of freedom, and seeing the universe from a completely different perspective. And not having these fundamental fears that there's not enough, that
Right.
we're going to run out, that there's
Right.
not enough resources, but knowing that the universe is incredibly, infinitely abundant,
Yeah.
and you can just play in it
Yeah.
with all the energy available to you.
Mm.
I think that's what I vision for our future.
Mm.
And I think we're actually getting really, really close to this.
Mm.
It's not going to be 10 generations from now.
Right.
I think we're actually on the precipice of that huge change. And it's big for our society. It's
Yeah.
going to take some courage.
Yeah.
And we must make that turn. We have to
Yeah.
make that change so that our society evolves and continues to be sustainable.
Yeah. So one takeaway that they can apply right now that they can actually do themselves to know they're the power of the whole world in their one little fingertip.
Take the time every day to explore the inside of you.
Yeah.
Take the time every day to go inward and connect with this fundamental field
Yeah.
that makes your existence.
Mm.
And if you do that, it gets stronger and stronger, even if it's just 5 minutes every morning
Yeah.
or at night or whatever, when the kids are in bed or whatever,
Yeah.
just to like connect,
Yeah.
then you start feeling a difference right away.
Right.
And it will have a huge impact in your life.
Mm.
And because you'll feel connected.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most important part of the work that I'm doing,
Mm.
is to help people realize that that's critical,
Uh-huh.
but as well give them the mechanics
Yes.
of that is not just some philosophy,
Right. Some affirmation.
it's some affirmation,
Yeah.
but it's actually the way the universe works.
Yeah.
And more people connect, more and more will understand it,
Yeah.
and more will build technology that match that level of connectivity,
Yeah.
and our world is going to transform.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we need the help of everybody.
Absolutely. Not bad, pretty sexy physicist there, hey? For Brave, Bold, and Raw. I'm so grateful for our Take Two interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can learn more at resonance.is. Also, there's an amazing DVD and a new one coming out as well.
That's right. A short movie that's being made should be out in the next 2 months by Malcolm Carter, and I think it's going to be really high-end, beautiful graphics. It's going to help people understand what I wrote in physics.
Beautiful. So to learn more, go there, grab that, and from my heart to yours, thank you for existing. Thank you for continuing to show up, even when it's difficult. And thank you for your vulnerability, that you're still a work in progress, as we all are.
Yes.
And your willingness to shine and own it and keep showing up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Thank you for your help.
And thank you. Until next time on Brave, Bold, and Raw, know I love you to pieces. Mwah.